Hi and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this 2-hour to practice sharing webinar entitled Effective Measures and Continuous Improvement via OBE Implementation, organized by MyQAN Training Unit, UITN and UTAR. Thank you for making time to attending this webinar. Special thanks to UITN team for hosting the webinar, technical and secretarial support throughout the webinar. The scope of this webinar is about OBE measurement and CQI, which is one of the most important QA aspects and processes in higher education. Today, we have a great honor from our MyQAN President, Professor Dr. Irfan Nafal bin Umar, to give an opening remarks for this webinar. Prof. Irfan, please.
Thank you, Ms. Lo. Can you hear me?
Yes, Prof.
All right, thank you. All right, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera and a very good afternoon, everyone. To our speakers, Prof. Dr. Shahrir Abdullah, Associate Professor Dr. Rosdiazli Ibrahim, and Technologist Dr. Kah Pin, our moderator, Prof. Hanim Salleh, who is also our MyQAN Deputy President, MyQAN Training Unit, headed by Prof. Dr. Suzana Sulaiman of UITM, and Ms. Lo Xiao Yen, our webinar secretariat, MyQAN committee members, deans, professors, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Society for Malaysian Higher Education Institutions Quality Assurance Network, or MyQAN, I would like to thank you to everyone here for your support in our webinar entitled Good Practice Sharing Webinar, Effective Measures and Continuous Improvement via OBE Implementation. Special thanks to the 3 invited speakers for your willingness to share with us your expertise and experience on OBE practices in your institutions. We would also like to thank University Technology Mara, or UITM, for being our host today. Ladies and gentlemen, this webinar is in line with MyQAN mission as a QA network amongst Malaysian higher education institutions, sharing good practices and strengthening internal quality assurance while providing interface with regulators and stakeholders. A bit of information on MyQAN. Currently, we have 66 members involving 17 public universities and 49 private universities and colleges. And we welcome other institutions to be our member in this network. As a registered society since 2016, we have built our reputation at the national level, and we plan to gain recognition at the regional and international level. For instance, our annual seminar in internal and external quality assurance, or known as SIQA, together with Malaysian Qualification Agency, or MQA, is our annual commitment in providing the platform for HEIs to discuss QA matters and share the good practices. This year, we already had 2
Prof, you are muted, Prof.
Sorry. All right. So this year in 17 March, we have organized SIQA 2021. Sunway University as the host and MQA as our partner. And then we also have next month on the 2nd and 3rd December, the Asian QA Association, with the collaboration of MyQAN and FAA, will organize the Asian QA Forum 2021. The theme for this Asian QA Online Forum is The Way Forward, Assuring Quality in Diverse and Remote Learning Environments. Everyone is welcome to join the online forum. So for today, we will have another sharing of practice session organized by MyQAN. We are glad to have 3 OBE experts here, Prof. Shahrir Abdullah, who is also our former MyQAN president, to share the concepts, principles, and importance of OBE, Associate Professor Dr. Rosdiazli, and Dr. Chen to share OBE practices in UTP and UTAR. I'm sure we will learn a lot from them, and hopefully this session will help us to strengthen our OBE practice and our QA in our own institutions. Again, thank you everyone for making this webinar a reality. Have a fruitful webinar and thank you. Back to you, Ms. Loh.
Thank you, Prof. Irfan. Okay, before we start the webinar, let's have a group photo with all of you. Please switch on your webcam for a quick photo session. I would like to invite my MyQAN President, Prof. Irfan, MyQAN committee members, training unit, our UITM host, speakers, moderator, and all the participants. Please switch on your webcam so that we can have a quick group photo with all of you. Dr. Hayati.
All right. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, smile. One more attempt. All right, ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hayati and the team for the photo taking. We are honored today to have Professor Shahrir from UKN, Dr. Rosdi from UTP, and Dr. Chen from UTAR to share with us their experience and insights of OBE and CQI. We understand that you may have questions for the speakers after listening to their sharing, or you already have some questions now. Please make full use of the pigeonhole as shown on the screen. Dr. Hayati, please project the pigeonhole link. Okay. And the pigeonhole link is also shown in the chat box. You can use that to raise your questions, or you can even do the voting now. If those questions are in the chat, in the pigeonhole, is also your questions. We will then pick up from there and pass to the moderator and speakers for them to address your questions. Okay. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our moderator for today's webinar. Our moderator is none other than Professor Dr. Hanim Salleh from UNITEN. Professor Hanim is the Director of Quality Advancement Center, responsible for quality assurance and academic program self-accreditation in UNITEN. She is a chartered engineer who graduated with a BSc in agriculture engineering from the University of Georgia, USA, a Master of Science from UPN, and PhD from the University of Southampton, UK. As a professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering UNITEN, she has authored many publications and has won more than 25 national and international invention awards in the area of vibration, energy, and mechanical design. She has held various academic leadership positions, include HOD, Deputy Dean, and Senate member. Her involvement at national level includes her appointment as the rating instrument for SATARA and MyQAN researcher, program assessor for MQA and ETAP, as well as rating officers for MyQAN and SATARA. Due to her vast academic leadership experience and more than 20 years working, currently she has been entrusted to represent the university as the Deputy President of MyQAN and the Chairman of MyQAN Self-Accrediting University Sub-Network. She has conducted various talks and trainings in preparation for HDP rating, academic quality management, quality assurance, outcome-based education, NQF, as well as training for assessors and program developers. Now let me pass today's webinar to Prof. Hanim. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Loh, for the generous introduction. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon to all the participants. Welcome to this MyQAN Good Practice Sharing webinar. Maybe before we start, let me just share with you one of the famous quote from the father of OBE, William G. Spady, that says, "All students can learn and succeed, but not in the same day, in the same way." So maybe let us reflect on the quotes where we're going to talk a lot about outcome-based educations, where we need to look at the learning outcomes, the activities, and how we can improve from that in terms of delivering it to our students. So maybe we are so lucky today to have all the three prominent speakers, and we will start with our first speaker, who is also the founding president of MyQAN, who is Professor Engineer Dr. Shahrir Abdullah. Maybe let me just introduce to you a little bit about his background. Hi, how are you, Prof. Shahrir? I hope you are doing good today. Prof. Shahrir is from the Department of Mechanical and Manufacturing Engineering, Faculty of Engineering, UKM. He received his doctorate degree from the University of Wales, Swansea, and his PhD, and he was also the first director of the Center of Quality Assurance in UKM from 2011 to 2018. He was the Dean of Faculty of Engineering and Built Environment, UKM, from 2018 to 2021. He has been representing Malaysia in AUNQA Council member from 2016 until 2018, and now he serves the Deputy Chair of AUNQA Council. So I'm sure Prof. Shahrir has a lot of things to talk about and share with all of you. So with the topic of OBE as driver of academic excellence, now the floor is yours, Prof. Shahrir.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Hanim, for the introduction. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon to all of you. First of all, I would like to thank MyQAN, led by Prof. Irfan, for inviting me to share my experience and some knowledge of OBE with all of you. I hope this will be where we can share our practice. Of course, I will share what my thought through the slides, and then we will have Q&A session. The topic given to me is OBE as a driver for academic excellence, and then this is the outline. But of course, I will touch in detail more on the first two, while the other I will just touch briefly. I hope we can have an interactive session to really discuss this topic, particularly the later one, so that we can have we can gather some good practices among us. Okay, but before that, the topic is touch about academic excellence, but my context is for me when I prepare the presentation is more on the for us to be able to produce quality graduates through quality education, quality academic programs. So before I proceed with my further slides, I would like to share some expectation which has been captured in the survey. I believe the MyQAN has done the survey, and then the information was conveyed to me, and then I did some analysis in terms of word cloud to capture actually your expectation. Obviously, of course, because the title is OBE, then most of you answer the questionnaire, putting OBE in the first place, the most the highest number of response. Of course, you have many purpose, but the dominant one has been highlighted through the size of the font. You can see there. So these are the expectations captured by questionnaire. And based on that, results, that analysis, basically I tally my slides based so that most of us can get most out of it. But before that, I would like to give some historical background on our journey, the nation's journey, as well as the university's journey towards OBE. We start around 2000. Some of us start around 2000, particularly in the engineering fraternity. At that time, the Quality Assurance Division was established at KPT, followed by AC become the provisional member of External Court. And then the manuals released by EAC containing some requirement on the outcomes. At the same time, the QAD released the MQF, the first edition of Malaysian Qualifications Framework in 2005, also formulated the requirement for the program to start to have outcomes, learning outcomes. And then 5 years after the inception of OBE in Malaysia, we have some progression in a way that MQA has been established through the merging between LAN, National Accreditation Board, and QAD. At the same time, after 5 years, Board of Engineers has managed to become full member of University Court in 2009. And then we also experienced APA, Academic Performance Audit, where some of the universities have been given the status of self-accreditation. And then the status has been granted in around 2010 or 2011, where 8 universities had been granted self-accreditation. And on 2011, MQA declared enforcing full compliance to MQF. And then that will be one of the main emphasis in the program accreditation conducted by MQA. And then MQR start becoming a main program register in Malaysia. And then 5 years later, the self-accreditation universities has increased in this number to 18. MQF second edition was launched in 2017, where it was aligned with AQRF. AQRF stands for ASEAN Qualification Reference Framework, meant to promote compatibility within ASEAN region. And then COPA second edition was also launched alongside with several APEL scheme, APEL A, APEL C, APEL Q, recently APEL Q, and micro-credentials, MOOCs, and so on. So there are guidelines if you want to embark into this kind of this agenda. So you can see the chronology. We start the journey from 2000 by incorporating learning outcomes in the existing curriculum. Of course, there are some shortcomings and drawbacks. And then after that, many of us start reinforcing OBE in the curriculum design and review. And after we have done, quite a good job, I would say, after 10 years implementing OBE, then we focus on constructive alignment, how to complement OBE through constructive alignment. And then after that, recently, many of us are focusing on validating the students' attributes and sustaining the program outputs and outcomes. So these are some chronological order if we want to divide the progression of OBE implementation in Malaysia in 5-year duration. Okay, and then next is the principle of OBE. Basically, the OBE, we have many gurus actually, but the main 2 gurus that actually managed to shape the thinking and the framework of OBE, like what we implemented today, I would say there are 2 important persons. First, William Spady, who actually proposed the outcome-based education back in 1994. I think the chairperson, from Hanim, also quoted some something from Professor Spady. Here, William Spady refer OBE as an educational philosophy, where it's around the system circulated around goals or outcome. So at the end of a learning experience, maybe within one semester or within the duration of the program, the students should be able to attain the outcome. At the same time, the delivery and assessment can be determined based on students' learning style in order to attain the outcome. And then the role of teacher may change from one role to different role, instructor, coach, facilitator, or mentor, to enable the student to attain the outcome. The philosophy is very personalized, based on individual progression, but whether or not we can implement it, that's different method because we are constrained by the resources and so on. And another educationist that also shaped how we implement OBE is John Biggs. In 2003, he introduced the concept of constructive alignment based on the backwash model. So in his model, the teacher's job is to create learning environment that supports learning activity. And then Biggs, in the backwash model there, you can see that after we formulate the learning outcomes, then we decide the assessment regime, and after that we decide the learning activities. So we can say that it is a more strategic in a way that it is driven by assessment. Okay, and then we have the evolution of our curriculum, how the curriculum that we know today has evolved from before 2000 until we embrace the OBE model, OBE curriculum. If you remember last time, our curriculum, I mean, before 2000, our curriculum is more on what we call as content-based. This is referred to mastery-based education, where we focus on the criteria for measuring the mastery or proficiency. And then the learners are guided by instruction, for example, the course material, tutorials, and so on. And then they are assisted as they are challenged. And then they are given time, for example, within one semester to achieve this mastery. But the whole focus is on content. At the same time, the program which focus on practicals has embarked into competency-based education, where the learners' progression are given time based on their own pace to obtain proficiency in certain skills. And then it evolved. The competency-based education is the one who which evolved into outcome-based education, because in outcome-based education, it is important for the learners to be clear about the outcome, to be clear why they need to achieve the outcome and why the purpose of the outcome. And then during the early stage of the OBE, we already have our own curriculum. So what most of us do, I think all of us did is actually to go into that curriculum and then to define the outcome for each courses, and then map with the outcome at the program level. So we kind of doing the bottom up. This is called roughly traditional or transitional. The model that may serve as the transition between content-based or competency-based model to an ideal OBE model. So the model eventually put emphasis on the subject-specific content, as well as some cross-discipline outcomes or generate skills or transferable skills. But the ideal way to establish OBE is what we call the top-down approach, where we define the program outcomes, because the program outcome will be also be formulated in consultation with the stakeholders and regulators also, and the standards. So there's another evolution as reported by Roy Killen in 2005, after implementing the OBE in US. Many of the universities tried to look into the formulating a top-down approach or adopting a top-down approach, which is more effective because it combines the traditional OBE with the requirement for students' future life roles as productive worker as well as responsible citizens or parent. So in this case, the outcome should be of high quality, and then should be able to demonstrate culminating attributes to represent the significant learning. So if this transformation works correctly or works effectively, we should be able to transform a content-based curriculum into the outcome-based curriculum. In terms of teaching and learning approach, we should be able to transform the instruction-based focus, which has been in the MBE model, into the learning focus, the focus on learning, and on assessment and evaluation. We should really reduce the exam-oriented summative assessment to become assessment that focus on outcome. So it depends on how we write outcomes. But of course, the whole idea is actually to build the curriculum based on OBE principle. So in this case, in Malaysia, normally we build the curriculum based on the statements stipulated in the PLO, program and outcome. And then in our system also, we also need to formulate program educational outcome, which should represent the graduate attribute in their working life. And then in order to do that, we need inputs like we need to align the program outcome with our institution's mission and vision, as well as educational goals. Many of the institutions also have educational goals. We also have standards issued by MQA, MQF, as well as the policy, the QA policy by the Ministry of Higher Education, requirements from professional bodies, as well as the alumni and stakeholder capture, maybe through survey or maybe through the advisory panel. And then from that, we can gather what's the graduate attributes that we want to produce at the end of the day, at the end of the program. But this one is at the design stage. On the implementation stage, okay, we need to plan also by having a correct assessment. Remember the BLITZ model, we plan for the assessment, then we align with teaching and learning approach in order to project, to be able for the curriculum to produce the graduate attribute that we want. And then that will be measured by the PLO attainment. In order to do that, we need tools. And then tools like lesson plan, assessment plan, and then we need to carry out the assessment correctly when to strike a balance between a formative assessment and summative assessment, and then delivery based on certain philosophy, so that we are clear about the whole concept holistically. And then if we do it correctly, then we should be able to measure the attainment, and then the attainment of PLO as well as CO among the students will reflect the assurance of learning. And then this is actually the constructive alignment, which has been adapted with according to our system that we are practicing in Malaysia. But the critical key success factor is actually on the outcome itself. So how complicated or how systematic the OBE curriculum is based on how you write the outcomes. So we need to write the outcome properly. We are using referring to best practices. In Malaysia, we need to write two sets of statements that represent the outcome, PEOs and PLOs. And after that, we need to do some constructive mapping to causes and causal outcome, and writing and profiling correctly the causal outcome. And in this case, this is the critical one, because this will decide how you assess the students, whether or not the outcome is profiled correctly. So the construct of learning outcome also important, because the verb use should be the one that we can see the demonstration by the learners. So it has some construct, and then the context and content also need to be related to the body of knowledge for the course or the program. And then for profiling, you might familiar with Bloom taxonomy. So it is advisable not to mix up, not to combine one statement with two profiles, two domains. But at the same time, for when we go into higher level, sometimes this one, it may be observed in competency-based model. There may be some merging between affective and psychomotor that you don't know how to handle if you use Bloom taxonomy. Maybe we can also use other kind of taxonomy. For example, the solo taxonomy that has been proposed by John Biggs in order to handle the metacognitive learning outcomes or similar. And then the learning outcome also need to follow SMART. So to make it specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time limited. And then after that, we plan the assessment and the teaching and learning approach, as well as a lesson. So these are the steps that you may want to follow or want to revise when in order to make the outcomes more friendly for your system. And then, apart from writing the learning outcome, the learning outcome has to be connected among each other, and particularly has to connect with the program learning outcomes. So in this case, I would, this one of the example how we use top-down approach in order to connect the PLOs with CLOs. And eventually you plan the assessment task, and then you have the student assessment as an evidence for the attainment by students. And then if you do it from top to bottom, you can maintain the constructive alignment at the design and delivery. But at the same time, the constructive alignment should be observable at the end when you do the grading and determining the attainment of CLO and eventually the program learning outcomes. So if you recall the ICGP initiative, this one also can be done independent of ICGPA also, that you can measure the attainment of program outcomes or course learning outcomes, and eventually you will get to know whether or not the student achieve the outcomes or not. But of course, this one it depends on the model that you use, because whether or not you consider all the courses or you consider only what we call culminating outcomes. Because maybe for attainment at the program level, we don't have to consider any of the outcomes. But that depends on your model, because this also being emphasized by William Spady to differentiate between culminating outcomes and enabling outcomes. Okay, so in the end, the model that we use in order to measure the outcomes, there are some consideration, and then this correlation, we decide whether or not you will face difficulty or your system is systematic and more direct. So I will put in 4 questions like this. How direct is the PLO mapped to the CLO? Especially when the PLO is stipulated by the standard, or written in knowledge, skill, attitude, KSA, or competence-based format. This one may be applicable if you read the PLO like EAC, because they are written by stakeholders. They are not written in terms of cognitive psychomotor attitude, affective domain. But how you connect that with the CLO that normally are based on cognitive, psychomotor, and affective domain. And then to up to an extent, the assessment task measure the attainment of CLO. This one is an issue of constructive alignment. And how well the CLO be the indicators for the PO attainment. Okay, the KPIs, for example, for the PO attainment. And then is the cost eventually, finally, is the cost grade reflective of student overall attainment of CLOs in the course? At the same time, his or her final CGPA is an indication of all the POs attained or not. So this one need to be answered if we want to see whether or not OBE system, our OBE system managed to ensure all the students, all the graduated students meet the outcomes. And then I would like also to touch on the learning outcomes, because our learning outcomes is stipulated by MQF. But of course, for professional program, the program may need to refer to the professional body's requirement. So in 2017, we already, I think all of us are already aware that the second edition of MQF has been launched, and then it defines 5 clusters of learning outcome. And then within that 5 clusters of learning outcome, there will be there are sub-clusters. For example, cluster number 3, which focus on functional work skill or transferable skills, have more sub-clusters. Even for 4,
I'm sorry.
also we have
Prof. Shahrir, maybe you can conclude your presentation.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So this one is clusters, but at the same time, I would like to mention that the establishment of MQF has been aligned with AQRF as well as UNESCO's requirement. So you can see the AQRF and UNESCO's are just alike. And then also the alignment with social record criteria that has been the gist of EAC's manual. But I would like also, some of you may be aware that the EAC graduate attributes or program outcome has been updated, because it is updated by the establishment called International Engineering Alliance. Maybe this one I leave it for Q&A. What kind of changes we expected in the new IEA updates? But in summary, the 12 POs will be reduced to 11, but there's an additional knowledge profile. So you can see, but you can see in colors, it is mapped quite well. And then these are the metrics. Maybe you can, if you get the slides, you can see how almost one-to-one mapping between the MQF and the EAC and ETEC program outcomes. Okay. Also, in the outline, I also has been asked to cover how to measure the non-cognitive domains, but since the time is limited for me to discuss further, I would say maybe you can measure psychomotor domain through a demonstration of practical skills, and affective domain through project implementation, presentation, as well as reflection and the student output like report. And then there are reference if you want to you want some help in formulating the rubrics. This is referred to as Acu Rubric, Association of American College and Universities, who established many rubrics, particularly on generic skills, how to measure the affective domain. Okay, so I put here 2 examples. One is on the civic engagement, which is similar to our personal skills in MQF cluster 4, and ethical reasoning, which can be used to some extent to measure the most difficult, the most difficult cluster by many, which is ethics. when we have outcomes like ethics, how to measure. Okay, I think that's all the coverage of my slide, and then the one that I want to talk based on the outline given to me.
Yes.
So I would like to hand over back to Professor Hanim. Thank you very much for attention. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Shahrir. Yeah, it was an excellent and so excellent presentation and very insightful. I'm sure we want to listen more to Prof. Shahrir. We have another sessions after this on the Q&A, so don't worry. Maybe just a little bit of summarization of what he has covered. Prof. Shahrir has mentioned on the OBE principles, the importance, how it evolves, and these will actually eventually can drive the academic excellence on the attainment of the learning outcomes. How do we actually maintain the constructive alignment in OBE? And specifically, he already showed to us on specific measurements for affective and psychomotor. So we have heard about how we actually measured courses in a program in terms of OBE. But now, what if the program is research-based? So that's how it goes to, we want to listen to the second speaker on how actually the OBE implementation for postgraduate programs, especially for research mode. So we are honored today to have our second speaker, Associate Professor Engineer Dr. Rosdiazli Ibrahim. He is the Dean for Center for Graduate Studies, University Technology Petronas. He will share with us on the implementation or implementing OBE for postgraduate level by research mode. Hi, how are you, Dr. Rosdi?
I'm fine, thank you, Prof.
Okay, so maybe before we pass to him, let me just introduce a little bit about Professor Engineer Dr. Rosdiazli. He graduated with BEng in Electronic and Computer Engineering from UPM. His master's was from University of Newcastle, UK, and PhD from University of Glasgow in UK. He was an engineer in Sony Video Syndrome Berhad and subsequently served Petronas Fertilizer Kedah Syndrome Berhad prior to joining University Technology Petronas. He held the post of Head of Electrical and Electronics Engineering Department from 2014 to 2017 and has been holding the post of Dean, Center for Graduate Studies, UTP, since July 2017. He's a chartered engineer registered with the Engineering Council UK, a senior member of IEEE, and also professional engineer with BEM. And I'm sure we want to listen more from Dr. Rosdi from his experience as the Dean himself. So Dr. Rosdi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Prof. Hanim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to everyone. Selamat petang, selamat tengah hari, salam sejahtera to all. Let me share my slide. Can everybody see my slide?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Rabbi Shari wa Yasir li amli wa hudatan lisani. Again, Assalamualaikum to everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you to the organizing committee, MyQAN, for the invitation. I would like to also thank my colleague Muhammad Izzat for putting up this slide for me together with me to come up with this slide. Today I will be sharing with you the implementation of our outcome-based education OBE at University Technology, particularly for postgraduate program by research. Yeah. So thank you, Prof. Hanim, just now for the introduction. Just want to share with you that I joined UTP as training lecturer in 1999. Last week, I received Long Service Award for my 20 years service in UTP.
Congratulations, Dr. Rosdi. Yeah.
20 years already in UTP. So during these 20 years, I have learned a lot, especially on OBE. I think we started OBE implementation, fully OBE implementation, I think way back in 2012. So I kind of involved directly with this initiative. So today, I will be sharing with you the actual experience as course lecturer, as head of department electrical electronic engineering, and as well as dean, as well as dean Center for Graduate Studies. And I will also like to probably share my experience as ESC assessor auditor throughout this presentation. Since I will be talking or will be sharing about UTP, integration of OBE at UTP, I think it's fair for me to give some insight on UTP. Yeah, so it was established in 1997. So next year, UTP will be celebrating its 25th anniversary, Silver Jubilee. So again, it's going to be very interesting, event next year. Hopefully, you guys can join us to celebrate our anniversary, Silver Jubilee. So here, total of number of programs. At the moment, we have 56 programs altogether. 1 foundation program and 14 undergraduate programs. So out of these 56, 41 programs are postgraduate programs, and out of these 41, 22 research programs, MSc and PhD. On top of that, we have 19 masters by coursework. In this case, we have convention mode and ODL mode. At the moment, we have 7 ODL programs. Technical programs, we have received quite very encouraging so-called enrollment at the moment. We started it last year, May 2020 semester. We are rather a small and focused university, very small university in the sense that we only have 2 faculties, FOE and FSIT, for Faculty of Engineering and Faculty of Science and Technology and Information Technology. So under this FOE, we have 5 programs or 5 departments. It's very conventional kind of department. We have chemical, civil, mechanical, EE, and petroleum. Probably petroleum, not that many universities have this petroleum engineering. But the other 4, yes, I think you can find it anywhere else in university in the country. So under FSIT, we will have 4 departments: Computer and Information Science, Fundamental and Applied Science, Geoscience, and Management Humanities program. Again, I mentioned just now, we are rather small. In fact, as compared to other universities in the country, with regard to academic staff, we only have 300, close to 300 staff only. Academic staff, we're talking about academic staff. So 82% of our academic staff with a PhD qualification, and 20% of our faculty staff, faculty members are from international, from abroad. In terms of our PG students, we have 1,355 students at the moment. Total population, student population is about 6,614, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. 6,614 students. In terms of breakdown, PhD and masters, 45% of our PG project students here, PhD candidates, and masters is about another 55%. So based on our ranking and rating, QS ranking and rating, THE, Myra, and Setara, we can proudly declare that we are #1 private university in Malaysia. So I think we are very consistent in terms of our achievement and accolade in terms of our ranking and rating. That is something that we are proud of at the moment. Yeah. Okay. To put the our sharing session, our good practice, our context here, I think Prof. Shahrir just now has mentioned quite very detailed in terms of our involvement, in terms of our OBE in Malaysia, implementation of OBE in Malaysia, way back, I think, as mentioned just now, more than 10 years ago. So it is not really new to us, OBE, outcome-based education. But if you look at the understanding on this OBE implementation, rather more widespread or well established at undergraduate level. At PhD, at postgraduate level, particularly in research, I think it's still new, or still rather trying to find the rhythm in terms of implementing this OBE. I think simply because when you want to implement OBE for undergraduate level, you have list of courses with a body of knowledge that can somehow align your program outcome, and you can translate these courses into your program your course learning outcome, and will support your program learning outcome. Eventually, it will somehow support your PEO program educational outcome. But for postgraduate program by research, you don't have courses. You don't have list of courses. Very difficult for us, to align your activities to assess our student semesterly to ensure that the outcome based at PG level will also be implemented fully. So today I will be sharing some insight on implementation of OBE at UTP on postgraduate program by research, and I would like to probably narrow down the scope in terms of CLO, course learning outcome, though we don't have course per se, course module, but probably based on activity that we have, then we will translate it into learning outcome eventually. Okay. As mentioned by Prof. Shahrir just now, we cannot run away when you talk about OBE. You cannot run away from these four elements, four important components. One is PEO, the second one is PLO, the third one CLO, and the fourth one CQI. Because CQI, it's not going to be. We cannot stop at any point where we keep on improving from time to time. We need to keep on improving. That's why we need to have a CQI. But when you have a CQI, it doesn't mean that you are on the bad side. You are basically putting at your performance is a poor performance. Then you want to improve it. No, even though you are at the best, let's say for example, you can also improve. I think the biggest room is actually a room of improvement. So I think CQI is very important in this. It's very crucial. So if you look at this sequence, PEO, when we design a program, you need to start with PEO. So PEO is our program educational objective. The alignment, as I think Prof. Shahrir also mentioned just now, the alignment between the HRL vision and mission, the university's vision and mission, research agenda in this particular case, or university's agenda, then you need to somehow take that into consideration when you want to introduce new program. And we have to bear in mind the PEO is actually a product, academic product. What do you want to be? What do you get? What is the product at the end of the day? So we will look at it, the product in terms of 3 to 5 years after graduation. So if you want to be a leader, or you want to be a specialist, you want to be expert, you want to produce expert leaders and all, it's actually a product. So if you look at in a different perspective, if you are a manufacturing plant, you need to come up with a product. Then you describe your product well. You need to define your product at the beginning. What kind of product do you want? What is the attribute of this product? Is it going to be the best product in Southeast Asia, let's say for example, or in the country, let's say for example? So all these are basically need to be you need to consider upfront beforehand. And the indicator, when you talk about PEO, you cannot run away from the indicator of PEO. So this is somehow we measure your performance of your programs. The indicator must be somehow will be, we will reflect the achievement of your PEO statement. So again, when you want to outline your PEO, make sure it's smart. Just now, Prof. Shahrir did mention about smart. Must be very, you have to how to measure, and this measurement somehow will translate into indicator. And this indicator will somehow eventually translate your performance of your programs. Yeah. So now, the program learning outcome. Program learning outcome, though it is quite flexible for us to outline our program outcome, but normally we will somehow go back to manual with standard. For our case, probably master's and doctoral degree, newly released standard, we need to somehow look at it in terms of what is the requirement from MQA with regard to this PLO, opening learning outcome, for this particular program. Let's say, for example, for engineering program or engineering program, we have to somehow refer to specific program standard. For, I think, computing program, they have their own specific program standard. So all these standards, somehow you have to somehow look at it, and you have to strike a balance between this requirement and this another requirement, MQF 2.0, another requirement when you talk about PLO. So this measurement somehow, not this statement, somehow we have to somehow strike a balance so that we can fulfill the requirement from our statutory bodies. And the second point I want to highlight here, when you have established your PLO, you need to do your mapping, because again, the ultimate aim, basically, you want to produce a product. This product has basically, you have somehow outlined it with the PEO statement. So you have to do a mapping between PLO and PEO. So unlike the PEO, the achievement that you want to measure is after 3 to 5 years graduation. But for PLO, it's upon graduation. These are the attributes that we have to look at it when you after 4 years, let's say, for example, after a year for master's program by coursework, for UG program, for engineering program, you have to do it within 4 years. So after 4 years, then you will measure whether you have that attributes. So to measure these attributes, again, we need to somehow measure it. We have to somehow capture it. This is where the PLO attainment comes in. So the performance of the student based on this PLO. So this PLO, you need to somehow measure the performance of this PLO. How do you measure this? Again, to support PLO, I've mentioned just now, the most important part is CLO, the course learning outcome. So course learning outcome is the third so-called crucial or important points when you talk about OBE. So mapping between course learning outcome versus the PLO is a must, is required, because why? Because you want to get your student PLO attainment. So without CLO, without this course learning outcome, you won't be able to somehow measure. So now this course learning outcome, each course will have course learning outcome, and this course learning outcome will be mapped at graduation. Yeah. So now for PEO, after 3 to 5 years after graduation, PLO, you measure it upon graduation. And how do you measure PLO? CLO is upon completion of the course. So every semester you have to measure the course learning outcome, so that you can somehow provide the data or signal or indicator to PLO or your system, saying that your student basically have attained the required or intended PLO. So appropriateness of intended level of CLO will determine whether, when you talk about CLO, you will determine your level of Bloom taxonomy, whether it is level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. So for certain courses, it will probably address low level Bloom taxonomy. But when you go up higher to higher level, probably like year 3, year 4, you should be able to somehow strike the higher Bloom taxonomy. But in this case, for masters and PhD level by research, definitely you will somehow looking at higher Bloom taxonomy between 4, 5, and 6. Yeah? So the idea when you address higher level Bloom taxonomy, it will provide level of difficulties, complex engineering problem, more complex problems and solution that you need to tackle. Yeah. Okay. CLO again, assessment to reflect outline CLO. CLO, you need to make sure that the assessment that you want to put forward, you need to make sure that it is specifically aligned with your intended CLO. Now, the last component here, CQI. CQI, you need to have indicator and mechanism on CQI. Indicator, in this case, indicator, you need to somehow, if it's below this threshold, then you have to do something. Let's say, for example, for PO attainment just now, if it's below the 50%, then you have to do you have to do something about it. To make sure that the students are on track. The students basically can follow the program well. So again, the second bullet here, intervention and strategy and plans. This is basically when you have the indicator. Once the indicator, you strike this indicator, what should we do with it? So we need to have a clear path on what we want to do in order for us to somehow bring the students or the performance of the students at the right track. Yeah. Again, for CQI, it's like closed loop. When you learn about control loop, a control system, where you have a feedback. So this feedback is basically to make sure that you are not basically run away from the targeted or reference point or your set point. So whenever you have this tracking and monitoring, then you will make sure that your system will be doing well. Yeah. Part of the CQI, you need to somehow look at the feedback from your stakeholders. Okay. This is a typical life cycle of our student in university. Every semester they have to register. Every semester they have to register. Sometimes students have to register courses. Sometimes they just want to register to make them active for that particular semester. So they will continue with the next stage, teaching and learning activities for PG program by research. They have to do, they can continue with their research activities. So in typical UG program and postgraduate program by coursework, in this case, you will see classes, laboratory work, tutorial, group work, project work. It's going to be part of the teaching and learning activities. Whereas on the other hand, when you talk about postgraduate program by research, student supervisor meeting is part of the activity, research and laboratory activities, publication, data collection, simulation work going to be part of the activity of the semester. And then if you look at the third bullet here, third stage is deliverable. Based on these teaching and learning activities, surely you need to have some expectation. So when you complete this task, you complete this class, what is the deliverable of this? So the class, let's say for example, if you want to start with the research activity, the laboratory work, surely you need to have an expectation what is the achievement that you want to produce at the end of the day. So now, based on these deliverables, normally we will do the assessment, and based on this assessment, it will be translated directly as part of academic standing. So if you look at here, the typical academic assessment for UG program, PG program by coursework, you will see assignment, quizzes, tests, presentation, and final exam. But for postgraduate program by research, you don't have this, final exam. You don't have this so-called test, quiz, and research. The only required or compulsory course for PG programs is actually a course module, a module that they have to take is research methodology. Yes, probably research methodology, you will have this assignment, quiz, and some presentation. But that's it. We don't have any more so-called courses that you have to go through. So what we see the typical assessment or typical activities that can be translated into academic assessment would be your RPD proposal, your research proposal defense, your seminar, colloquium, symposium, and finally, eventually, is your viva. This is going to be part of the assessment. So we want to use this to track our students' performance, to monitor the professional performance every semester. How do we do it? Then this is one I would like to share at UTP, academic activities at UTP, where the student every semester they have to register, not only to register to become an active student, but they have to register a course. Though it is not really a course, but this is basically a list of courses that they have to take. Let's say, for example, first semester, definitely, or without compromise, they have to do research methodology. It's a must. So first semester, they have to register this. So the next stage will be the RPD, research proposal defense. So they have to complete this. Right after research methodology, they can go through RPD. Then the next one at UTP, every semester after RPD, they have to go through BAPC. We call it BAPC, Biannual Postgraduate Conference. So they have to somehow deliver this every semester. So there are three components in this evaluation. It's evaluation from supervisor. They have to present in front of panel, and they have to produce technical paper. There are three components for this biannual.
Sorry to disturb you. Maybe you can go ahead and share with us the detail. How would you do the assessment?
Okay.
Yes, because you only have one or 2 minutes to.
Oh, okay. No
Yes.
problem.
Thank
Okay.
you.
These are the so-called component that we want to measure. Yeah. Okay. Let me go back here. Then I would like to stress it here that to evaluate assessment outcome for each stage to serve tracking and monitoring performance mechanism for PG program. So all these 4 activities will be translated into our assessment outcome. So now I will somehow summarize on the assessment outcome. How do you define this assessment outcome? So the way we define it, there are 4 so-called elements or guiding principle for us to come up with this assessment outcome. The first one, academic activity, to indicate designated academic activity. It is RPD. We will somehow translate it into the statement of the assessment outcome will be translated into this specific academic activity. So again, this is we cannot run away from PLO. Make sure that our assessment outcome will link or have map to our PLO intended or outline of intended PLO. So somehow you have to differentiate between masters and PhD. This is very crucial. To differentiate it, you have so many, you need to make sure that, in terms of expectation, deliverables, breadth and depth, and research contribution will be different. Yeah. So in this context, when you have a different differentiation, then you need to somehow translate it into your assessment outcome statement. So the last one here, the fourth component here, when you have this inline 1 to 3 academic activities, outline, PLO, and study level, you need to make sure that you have a better, you have proper assessment rubric to measure all this. This is then just an example on our BAPC masters. I take it as BAPC just now because I have mentioned that we have 3 components, and then this is the assessment outcome that we want to have. It's here the PO1 will address in technical paper, through technical paper, and oral presentation, and so on and so forth. And I have mentioned this just now, the 4 just now, the activities, research methodology, RPD, BAPC, and Viva, and they have to register it every semester. And if you look at this, it is not a course, but we treat it as assessment outcome. And here it will address a certain PLO and specific PLOs to make sure that, our PLO attainment will be achieved by the student at the end of the day. This is our system, our OBE system. to monitor performance of our students. This is particularly, we has highlighted just now, performance of our student. In this case, ABC 001 has conducted their VAPC, and the performance is this 74 and yeah. And the system will also provide us some insight on performance of all of our students for that particular batch or cohort. Here we can list down all the students that go through the same process, and we can monitor their performance as well. In this case, this is performance for particularly for BAPC. Okay? And this is going to be my last slide. From this analysis, we can also look at the threshold. For our case, all our assessment, students should be able to, or should somehow achieve more than 65%. If it is below than 65%, then it will trigger a CPI for us to look at it in terms of the gaps for the students, and we will address it accordingly. So this is the BAPC so-called, I would say, very similar to our rubric, where, let's say, for example, for paper review, we have all these components to be evaluated, and this component basically will address a specific PLO. Again, it will be based on our assessment outcome. Normally, we have 4 assessment outcome, or when we have 4 PLO. I think, Prof. Hanim, that's it from me. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Rosdiazli, for sharing with us. It's very interesting to learn how we actually can measure the attainment of learning outcomes for the postgraduate programs. Specifically, a lot of people want to really know, and you have shared just now is good. Some examples how you actually measure those learning outcomes through the activities and the assessments just now. And you can map out to the POs of the, or PLOs of the program. Thank you so much for the sharing from UTP. So now we have heard on the OBE implementation from both of the speakers, but how do you actually maybe further looking at in terms of assisting or monitoring and also evaluating this OBE implementation in a system, or maybe what we call the electronic OBE system? And we are very fortunate to have this third speaker. And just to highlight, he is an award winning of UTAR E-Learning Excellence Award for category of Science, Engineering and Technology in 2017. So Dr. Kah Pin, also the Head Center for Curriculum Development and Innovation, CCDI from University Tunku Abdul Rahman, UTAR. So he will share with us on the system that he used in UTAR, the OBE, electronic OBE, as well as the ICGPA system. So it's going to be interesting. So before I pass the floor to Dr. Chen, just a little bit more about Dr. Chen. He is the HRDC certified trainer for 10 years with very vast experience. And at the university level, he is, other than being the head of the CCDI, he also involved in a lot of academic development and OBE implementation in UTAR. Okay, and he assisted in drafting the UTAR guidelines on OBE and was involved in this development of EOBE to facilitate OBE as well as ICGPA. So I think let the person speak for himself in terms of his experience and the system. So without further ado, I would like to call upon TS Dr. Kah Pin. Go ahead, Dr. Chen.
Thank you very much, Prof. Hanim. Thank you for your introductions. And also I would like to thank Dr. Rosdi and also Professor Shahrir for their very insightful sharing as well. Okay, let me share my slide over here. Okay, a very good afternoon to all the participants. It's my honors to be invited to be one of the speakers in this MyQAN webinar 2021 to share what we have used to implement the OBE, right, effectively in our university, Tunku Abdul Rahman's UTAR. So a little bit, I think I will just skip this as Prof. Hanim has actually have introduced my profiles. Okay, let me introduce a little bit about UTAR campuses, like what Dr. Rosdi had done. So yes, we have 2 campuses for UTAR. Right, one is very near to UTP. I just checked, is about 30 to 40 kilometers from UTP. Also in Perak, particularly in Kampa, so we call it as a Kampa campus. So this is our some of the sceneries in Kampa campus. You can see this is the bird view. Our campus in Kampa is actually surrounded with all the lakes. Right, so this is our main hall. Okay, for most of the time, last time when we have a physical convocation, we have all the big events over here. Besides that, we also have a second campus, which is about 180 kilometers away from Kampa. We call it as a Sungai Long campus, right? So in Sungai Long campus, sometimes we call it as a city campus because it's basically only 2 main buildings that you can see from here. The first one actually is the first building that we have. The second one, the new buildings, actually is just been built in 2015. Right? So this is our 2 main campus. Then beside that, we also like to share with you a little bit about our UTAR history. You can see from here we are established since 22 with 411 students on June 10. Next year will be our 20th anniversaries. Then now, we have 2 campuses as mentioned just now. Then we have a 15 faculty center and institutes, comprises of 9 faculties, 3 centers, and also the 3 institutes. Right, from 411 students, now we already have about 20,000 students, right, from all kind of levels. With that, we actually supported with our 2,000 plus academic and also administrative staff here. So we have about 120 plus program from the foundation levels until to undergraduate and also the postgraduate levels as well. All right. So maybe I just would like to share a little bit about the vision and mission of UTAR, because you know, like what Prof. Shahrir and also Dr. Rosdi mentions about the OBE actually is very important, right, to design a program to actually align with your HEP vision and missions. So here in UTAR missions is actually to be a global university of educational excellence with transformative societal impacts. Okay, we are committed to achieve this vision through the 4 missions over here. Start with the UTARs. Okay, the first one is the universal values in our belief, technicities in overcoming challenges, agility in facing new frontiers, responsibility in pursuit of excellence. Okay, so beside the vision and missions, we also have the education goals as others HEP as well. So our main education goal is our UTAR graduate will be forward thinking about global professionals and entrepreneurs who are knowledgeable, competent, ethical, lifelong learners who will bring positive impact to the society. Right, we support with the 5 goals over here, and also we have our education principles actually is supported by these 6 education pillars. Right? The first one is virtue and morality. Number 2, knowledge and interact. Number 3, physicals and mental health. Number 4, society and humanism. Number 5, excellence and harmony, creativity and innovations. So these are our 6 main education pillars of UTAR. Okay, so thank you very much for your spending a few minutes with me for the introduction of UTAR. Now let me go into my sharings over here. So basically within this 20 to 25 minutes of sharing, I hope that we will know more about our OBE frameworks, right, that used in UTAR, and also how actually the electronic OBE system being used, right, so that we can have more holistic measurements of our course learning outcome, program learning outcome attainments. Lastly, of course, right, which is very important to have sufficient trainings and also education among our staff so that we can implement this OBE effectively. Okay, so these are the 3 main important ingredients that I mentioned in our outcome just now. So the first one, the framework. Number 2, system. Then followed by the trainings, right, program that apply to the lecturers. Okay. Right. So in any, I think in any HEP, when you are talking about OBE, we always start from vision and missions, like what Dr. Rosdi and also Prof. Shahrir has shared just now. Yes, we also apply the same frameworks. So we have program education objective and also our program learning outcome actually will align with our vision and missions. Right. Of course, at the next level will be the course learning outcome. So we have multiple courses, right, to support the students so that they can achieve the program learning outcome upon their graduations. How actually we measure the course learning outcome? Okay, of course, it's through all this kind of assessment question, tasks, and also components. So we measure, okay, we assess the student, we obtain the CRO attainments, then following by, we obtain the program learning outcomes attainment as well. So this is the main frameworks that we have used all this while to effectively to implement the OBE. This is another layout, how actually we present our frameworks, right? This is more on the horizontal frameworks, right, that been used in our Lee Kwang Chien Faculty of Engineering and Science, okay, to align the vision, mission, program education objective, and also the program learning outcome together. So I think just now, Dr. Rosdi also shared with us about CQI, the continual quality improvement. Yes, this is particularly very important. So in UTAR, actually, we also adopt the models of PDCA, plan, do, check, and act. Right? So these are the models that we use at the course level, program level, and even up to the professional levels. So how actually we use this PDCA at the course levels? So let us start from the course levels here. Start from the P. P is stand for plannings. Then before the trimester, we always have to do plannings, right? We will make use of the course information for every course, or we can term it as syllabus, to put down inside the teaching or course plan, right, before the trimester start. Then after that, we start to teach and assess the students according to the course learning outcomes, right? Throughout this process, our all kind of assessment also be moderated. So we have these assessment moderations, including continual assessment and also the final assessments or summative assessments. So during the check or evaluations stage, then we check all kind of the course learning outcomes state attainments from all the students using our EI system. The system that we use is called EI. Later I'll explain more why we call it as an EI. So based on the answer script, the assignment report, the presentation, and also all the practicals that demonstrated and also submitted by the students, right, we do the measurement to do the checkings. So this is the evaluation stage. Lastly, of course, we will go for the X, right, ACT-X, which is mainly for the improvement. So we will do the course levels CQI. So at this point, actually, how actually we can do it, we analyze the course learning outcome attainments. Then after that, we will put it inside the report, then we term as a course reports. Okay, so every semester actually we have to complete this course report so that we can know how actually we can improve, right, based on this semester's performance. So here you can see the loop actually go back to the planning stage, right? So this is how actually we close the loop from semester to another semesters. Besides, right? So using this constructive alignments, I think just now also mentions by Prof. Shahrir about these constructive alignments. It's very important to align the three elementary components in OBE. The first one, of course, the learning outcome, what the students should learn or able to do at the end of the course, followed by teaching and learning activities and how the learners learn. So we understand that different learners, right, have different learning styles and different patterns. So we need to adopt accordingly. For example, some of the students, maybe they are very good in reading. Some of them is actually prefer to have a visualized platforms so that they can watch the movie, the video. Or some of them actually is more kinestetics, means that they are more hands-on, that they need to have the chance to demonstrate their skills. Right? So we need to have various types of the teaching and learning activity so that every student can learn. Right? As Prof. Hanim start the webinar just now, every single student also able to achieve the outcome, but might not be the same day. So we need to provide the environments provide the platform for them to learn and also to achieve the course learning outcome. Then lastly, of course, we need to assess them because so that we can know how much that they have achieved the learning outcomes, okay? And also to evaluate and also reflect on their progress, okay? So based on this concept, all kind of our documents in the PDCA models, actually we are actually adopting this constructive alignment. So just a few samples that we would like to share with you all, how actually this all actually link together. So we start from the course syllabus, right, or the course information that are available in the item number 9. Then we have the mapping from CRO to the PRO, together with the teaching and learning methods and also the assessment. With that, when the lecturers doing their course learning planning, okay, doing a teaching planning, then actually they can adopt this accordingly. And also they can even go in more details plannings and designing all kinds of the assessment questions and also the rubrics accordingly. Then of course, during the implementations, we have go through the moderation process for both continual assessment together with the final assessment as well, right? So all these mappings actually is important because later on, when we are moving these mappings, right, into the systems so that we can measure our learning outcome accurately and also consistency. Okay, so in the stage of CQI, right, remember just now the PDCA, the A is the X, to improving. The improving, so how actually we can know our student to improve, right? How actually we can make our course better, how actually we can ensure that our student can achieve the learning outcome at the course level or even at the program level before they graduate. So just how we use assessment questions to assess the CRO. Then based on the assessment attainments, right, the CRO attainments, then we go back to the AQ, the assessment questions, right, which assessment particular questions that the student perform poorly, or even another extreme is they are performing very excellent. So with this, and also we correlate with our teaching and learning activity that we have provide to the students during the semester so that they can learn and also be assessed. So all these are linked together, right, for the CQI purpose. So when we are doing our CQI in our course report, actually we start to think whether it's our assessment method using wrongly, right, to measure the particular course learning outcome, or because of the teaching and learning activity is not sufficient, right, to let the student pick up and learn sufficiently before they can actually to show that they can actually achieve that particular course learning outcome. So this is very important at the course level for the CQI purpose. Then beside the course level, we move up to the program levels. How actually the program levels been adopting the PDCA. So just now we have mentioned about the course level. Okay, so in UTAR actually we are using the 3 trimesters academic calendars. So you can see we have 3 academic calendar. We repeat the same thing every trimester. Every trimester, our systems, right, the EI system actually can help us to measure, right, provide us the data about our, not only the CRO, but also the PRO attainments. So actually our PRO attainment actually been evaluated, but actually we will put inside our another report that we term is as an annual programming monitoring reports. Okay, so the program owners or the head of departments or head of program, actually they will compile all the information needed to input inside the APMR, the annual programming monitoring reports. Right, so they can studies, right, to do the evaluations, checking on the program learning outcome attainments by intake, okay, or even can be by trimester as well. Right, so with that, then they also will study together the whole departments, right, to what kind of the program CQI that we can make so that we can do a better, right, planning for our students. Okay, so this is the program levels. So from course level, we move up to program levels. Of course, we will go straight up to the professional levels, which is linked to the program education objective. Okay, so program education objective basically is the achievements, right, of our alumni after a few years later. Usually, we use 3 to 5 years as a range of the years. So how actually we can know that how is our performance, our alumni performance in here? So we use, most of the time we are using the alumni survey, or sometimes we also use employer surveys. Okay, so it's very important to know that how actually we can measure the PEO. Right? Just now we have mentioned for the CRO and PRO, we have the system to help us. But how about the PEO, the program education objective? So I would like to share with you here examples that we use in UTAR using the alumni surveys. So first, of course, we will design our performance indicator. For every single PEO, right, we need to understand what are the performance indicators that we can use to actually do the measurements, right? So in this example, we have 3 PEO. The first one is mainly for the technical competency. The second one is more on the communication and leadership. The third one is professionalism and also the lifelong learning. So with that, we decide what are the performance indicators we should use. Okay, and also we also set our targets. Right? What is our target achievement from this? So then we have this based on our alumni survey. Right? We do the analysis. Right? We know that, right, how actually our PEO achievements, right, through our surveys. Okay, so these are examples of the PEO achievements. So just now we have mentioned about the frameworks. Okay, we have mentioned about the frameworks. All right, so now we would like to move to the second one, systems. Okay, so some of you maybe have your own developed system, right? The in-house developed system for your own use. So we would like to share with you a little bit how actually our UTAR use the system to help us to measure the PEO and also not the PEO, sorry, the PRO and also the CRO. So this is a system that we have that is kind of the in-house development together with our partners, Silver Lake, which is one of our project collaborator, right, to develop these EI systems. Why do we call it as an EI? Because it's EOBE 2 and ICGPA, right? So because the system itself actually developed since 2017. Right? At that time, we are using mainly for the CRO and also the PRO measurements. Then we also started to implement ICGPA in 2018. So with the existing system, the EOBE system, so we built on top of this system to measure the ICGPA as well. So at the end, we renamed the system, we call it as a EI systems. Okay, so this is the main page of the system. In here, you can see that we have following the structures, the framework that we have. We have the program, we have the course, and also we have the assessments, right? So basically, these are 3 levels or 3 structures that we have in our system. Based on what we have in the frameworks, right? We built on inside the system how actually these layers to be used in the systems. So in the at the program levels, we have the information of the program learning outcomes. Of course, we also have the MQF LOD, like what Prof. Shahrir just now has shared with us, the latest MQF LOD, the Malaysian Qualification Framework Learning Outcome Domain as well. So then after that, we go down to the course learning outcome, the course levels, and also the assessment questions, right? So with that, we do the mappings, right? As I mentioned just now, in designing the constructive alignment, the mapping is very important from AQ to CRO, from CRO to PRO. Then for the ICGPA purpose, we also have the PRO to the MQF LOD. So this is the main structures that we have in our system. Okay, so these are samples of how actually we input the information inside the system. You can see this is the first table here. We have the MQF LOD, right? The 8 MQF LOD. We also allow the user to input the program education objective, although the program education objective is not direct measure through the EI systems. Okay, then after that, of course, we have the information of the program learning outcome. Then with that, we do the mappings from PRO to LOD and also from PRO to the PEO. Okay, so this is all about the program configurations. Then we will move down to the course levels, right? Course level, we input the information of course learning outcome, teaching methods, and also the domains or access for the course learning outcome. So of course, we follow by our CRO to map to PRO mappings with the taxonomy level, so that the examiner, when they are designing their assessment questions, assessment tasks, they will follow the taxonomy levels that been indicated inside the system. Then this is the assessment configuration. The examiner actually will input the informations. For example, in these samples, we have 40% of coursework with 60% of final exam. So the examiner just input the components accordingly. Then after that, they will do the mapping from the AQ to the course learning outcome. Right? So with that, all kind of these three levels of mapping, we are able to produce the course learning outcome attainments, program learning outcome attainment, and also the ICGPA as well. Okay, so this is the mark entries that we input the marks inside the system. So at the end, we have the course learning outcome attainments. Right? So the table below actually showing the individual students' course learning outcome. Okay, so they have their individual course learning outcome. So the system actually helps us to produce the bar charts of each of the course learning outcome in the 100% base. Then when all the courses have been compiled and also have been updated inside the system, then the program owners actually will generate the program learning achievements. Right? So as I mentioned, the system itself can help us to generate the program learning achievements by intake and also by trimester as well. Okay, so we also have the individual program learning outcome achievement reports, which also link to our internal academic advisory systems, where the academic advisor actually can discuss with the students about their program learning outcome, so that they can know what are their weaknesses and also what are their strengths, so that they can make further improvement for those poor PRO attainments before they will graduate from UTAR. Okay, so just a little bit about ICGPA. So as I mentioned, UTAR have implemented ICGPA since 2018. Okay, so this is one of the samples that we have. This is the report that we can extract directly from the EI system just now. Okay, so this is a MQF LOD, similar to what I presented just now. So this is the one, the individual reports, right, ICGPA report that presented. And also this year, we have our very first ICGPA transcript. Okay, our very first ICGPA transcript, because for a 3 years program since 2018. So this year, when during their graduation, they received their very first ICGPA transcript. So this is an example of the our UTAR integrated cumulative grade point average transcript that we provide to our students. Okay, so with that, they know that how much that they can pick up, right, after they graduate, and what are their strengths, right, so that they can pursue further. Right, they know how actually to perform according to their strengths and also improve their weakness from here. Right. Then last one, what we have beside the framework system, of course, the trainings. Okay, so although we have already have the frameworks, okay, although we already have the system, but the most important thing is the staff, right? If the humans, right, if the staff that actually will push the OBE implementation. So this is very particularly important, so that make sure that our all staff, particularly academic staff, actually well aware and also understand deeply on what is actually the OBE about, right? So for this one, the trainings and also the awareness, right, we have to push it for every year, right, so that we can ensure that our staff is not only familiar with the system, with the documentation, but mainly is the concept of the OBE, that every student also able to achieve the learning outcome, right, with various methods if they are given the opportunity. Okay, so that's why we have the staff training program that by our Center for Corporate and also Community Developments over here. The very first trainings that we have is the essence of the learning and teaching in higher educations, and followed by the OBE process in the delivery of curriculum assessment and data analysis. And during these 2-day trainings, actually, we also introduce the staff in terms of how to actually formulate a good CRO, right? What Prof. Salleh just mentioned about the SMART, the SMART, right? Because this is the very first stage, right? If your CRO doesn't design properly, right, the teaching activity and also the assessment will not run effectively. Okay, so this is very important with the appropriate CRO formulations. Then follow about the exposures of various kinds of the rubrics and also the teaching and learning activity. Of course, during these 2-day trainings, the participant also be introduced a little bit about the system, right? Because the system-wise, we will have a separate sections of the trainings for the implementation, because we already have our manual for the system, particularly for those new staff that they want to familiarize themselves in terms of how to actually make use of the system when they are doing their planning as well. So beside this concept, then we also go down to the developments and constructing assessment question for science and engineering and technology. So this one is one of the, we also have another training, particularly for the social science. Okay, so all these trainings actually will provided regularly to all the staff, and also can be upon request as well. So if any particular group of the staff lecturers that they think that they are lacking of certain elements, then they can actually propose to our university level staff development committee so that they can pick up and some kind of refreshments or refresher for them, right, to understand further what actually the OBE about. Beside the trainings, okay, the 2 days, 1 days, okay. Last time, of course, we are conducting in physical venues, but now, recent these 2 years, we will conduct it in the virtual. Beside that, we also have this OBE MOOCs that actually conducted by Center for Extension Education in UTAR. Right? So this one, the OBE MOOCs, right? Under this OBE MOOCs, then we have actually mainly 6 modules to cover. Right? In each MOOC, it comes with a video, a very short videos, and also with an assessment. So for any academic staff that they think that they need to know better, right, to test out, right, how much that they know about OBE, and also for those senior staff, maybe they want to have a refresher, so they can actually join into these OBE MOOCs programs. Okay, in this program, there are 6 main modules over here. First, of course, the concept, what is OBE? Secondly, will be have the how to formulate a CRO, the appropriate course learning outcome. Then third, what is the constructive alignments? Number 4 is how to assess various domain and also the Bloom taxonomy levels, because we have cognitive, we have psychomotor and affective, right? What just now Prof. Shahrir has shared, right?
Yeah,
And also
sorry, Dr. Chen, sorry to stop you. Yeah. So
no more time.
Yes.
Okay. Last slide. Thank you, Prof. Hanim. Okay, then number 5 is the PDCA. Lastly is the documentations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Hanim.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chen. It was really interesting to learn from UTAR how they actually implement OBE with their EI system, integrating the OBE, electronic OBE, as well as the ICGPA. He also mentioned about the 3 main elements, the framework, the system, as well as the staff training. It's really good, because I think the main thing that we want to ensure that our staff is being trained properly in order to actually implement this OBE. Very good. Thank you very much, Dr. Chen. So now let us go ahead to go to our second round on the where we need to answer some questions. So maybe need the help of Dr. Hayati to show some of the questions. We are actually running out of time in a way, so we try our best to at least one question. Yeah, just looking at the votes here. Yeah, I want to go to the first question for Associate Professor Engineer Dr. Rosdiazli Ibrahim. Yeah, so they put the name there. So
very specific.
very specific. So if you can see the question, may you share how UTP measures PLO by research programs, particularly the Viva and thesis examiner report? So the floor is yours, Dr. Rosdi.
Thank you, Hanim. I think I've mentioned it in my slide just now, all the activities that we have conducted as part of the assessment. I've mentioned just now research methodology, RPD, research proposal defense is also part of the assessment outcome that we want to now measure for PLO attainment. So for Viva, yes, our rubric, our report, evaluation report by the examiners, they have to indicate the performance of the students. They have to mark it. They have to give grade. They have to give rating 1 to 5. So between this 1 to 5, eventually we will translate it into their PLO attainment. So based on our mapping just now, PLO assessment outcome versus PLO, this PLO for Viva, it will address PLO number 1, number 2, and 7 and 6. 6 and 7, sorry, 6 and 7, 4 PLOs that they have to somehow cover or address. So again, yes, we do measure based on our report, based on our evaluation report. The examiner not only will provide the comment, but they will also rate. They will also somehow evaluate or give assessment rating between 1 to 5. So again, yes, we do measure that.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe just a little bit. I think they want to know specific. I understand you don't have the rubric now. Maybe you can share with us some of the elements.
Let me
measure. Yeah.
Okay. For our Viva, in the evaluation rubric, there are 3 sections: general section, the detail, and the last one on the feedback or the overall feedback. Any modification needs to be done or suggested or recommended by the examiner. So between section 1 and section 2, we have let's say, for example, abstract, problem statement, objectives, scope of studies, literature review, research methodology or design, research result, finding, analysis, research contribution. All these basically will be assessed or evaluated by the examiner by giving the students rating 1 to 5. So these are the components in the evaluation report that have to somehow the examiner has to provide marks or a score for the students.
Yeah, okay, very good. Thank you very much, Dr. Rosdi. I just read one of the message from the participants before we go to the second question. Maybe after this, we need to ask permission from the speakers if we can share the slides, because they are asking for the slides for the presentation. Maybe the organizer later on will let you know if they can email the slides to all of you. All right, so we move on to the second question. Okay, which has the 7 votes here. Okay, how do you make OBE implementation flexible enough to adapt with current or future situation? Okay, flexible curriculum, for example, we've been talking about dynamic and flexible curriculum. So this is a good question for Prof. Shahrir. Prof. Shahrir?
Thank you, Prof. Hanim. Okay, okay, the question is how we can make the OBE implementation flexible enough. The term flexible here can be defined in several ways, whether or not, it can produce future-ready graduates, where we designed the curriculum 5 years ago, whether or not it is good enough to produce the current graduates. Another thing is that another dimension that we can look at whether or not our curriculum is compatible enough if we want to do we want to engage in collaborative efforts, for example, to get partners, to identify the correct partner for dual degree programs and so on. In terms of the principle of OBE, like William Spady has emphasized, ideally, the OBE is more individual or personalized learning. That is in line with the flexible curriculum framework, but the limitation is on our system, whether or not, because our system is based on massification in producing the graduates. But actually, the key I expected is on the curriculum. If you can make the curriculum, build the curriculum so that it is flexible. For example, in terms of compatibility, how much it can, how much it can open for credit transfer, can adapt UPLC. If you can adapt UPLC, that credit transfer through microcredits, it can be very flexible. And then also depends on how much the elective courses, the slot for elective courses, because slot elective courses can make the curriculum more flexible. So in the end, it depends on how you design the blocks, the subject blocks or curriculum map within the curriculum. So, but OBE support that. The only limitation is our internal procedures, but our is flexible enough to allow this kind of updates and flexibility. I think that's my general answer.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Shahrir. I think it's also like OBE always implement the CQI, so that means by doing the CQI, I think it's also flexible enough to accommodate any changes in the curriculum. So I think that shouldn't be any issue if you actually adapt to new curriculum and improve your curriculum as well. Okay, good. So we go to the next question. There's a question for Dr. Chen, I guess. This is about how much the cost of developing the OBE online system, if you can share.
Actually, yes, sure. Actually, it's kind of the collaborative projects together with, I think I just mentioned about Silver Lake, right? It's one of the company that we work as a collaborations relationship, right? It's more on the internal costing for our own staff, and also we are using our existing server, right, to actually to develop this. But it's not much about the monies, the cost that we have, because it's more on the project base. Yeah, I hope that I have answered this for these questions.
Maybe for detail, they can contact you directly.
No problem. No problem.
As well. Maybe they want to know certain portion,
Yes, correct. Yes.
Some university, they're thinking of upgrading the system, maybe. So maybe they can contact directly.
Sure.
But I also want you to answer the other question, Dr. Chen. So don't go away because
sure.
Yeah, they put your name again. If the blue taxonomy level for cognitive domain is set at level 5, can we set a certain exam question at level 6 to identify excellent students?
Oh, okay. Yeah, interesting. So actually, when we are setting, of course, just now I did mention about for each course learning outcome, we have certain taxonomy levels. For example, we have level 3 is applying, and level 4 analyzing, then level 6 creating, right? So for each different levels, when we are, since already indicated in our course learning outcome, what we do in UTAR, actually we mentioned that you can access up to that particular course learning the Bloom taxonomy levels. For example, in your CRO is actually more on evaluations, so level 5. So you can access from level 1 until level 5, right? And the level 5 itself should be the domains, the dominance components for the overall assessment. Of course, for this question is asking, can we access more than that? I think definitely we can, like what he mentions here in the questions that challenge the students. But the dominance level still have to be the level 5 that already indicated in the course learning outcome. So that's why when you are formulating the course learning outcome, it's very important that you have to be clear and also specific, right? What are the level that the students should able to do at the end of the course? For example, if very different when you say just need to explain versus the evaluations, the evaluating a certain concept, certain principles, right? If explained, maybe you just need to understand and also remembering. But when you are doing evaluation, you need to be very high order thinking levels so that you can actually able to achieve that particular levels. Then in terms of your assessment, you should also come up with that level, right? It's not only explaining. Then as the question asking about whether it's level 6, is it acceptable? Of course it can, but should not be the dominant, because you will burden the students and also will confuse. The student might, instead in the course learning outcome, you say it's evaluating me, but I only need to do the evaluations, but how come I have to be asked to do the creating? Maybe for the certain, to distinguish certain the excellent student and the average student, then it's 5, but with a lesser percentage. This is the my personal opinion on this.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Chen. Let us go to the next question. For this question, yeah, okay. For this question, I want Prof. Shahrir and also Dr. Rosdi together, because there are 2 parts there that relates to their topics. Okay. How do we? Okay, I can't really see. Okay, how do we ensure learning outcomes can be attained when we cannot monitor the students face to face? So maybe Prof. Shahrir can answer, maybe related to internship or attachment, and then Dr. Rosdi can answer on the research part, non-face-to-face research part. Maybe Prof. Shahrir first.
Okay. Okay. If we cannot have interaction face to face with the students, we can still assess and monitor through their outputs. The student, after they complete an assignment task, they need to produce an output. For example, a report, a reflection, a video presentation, and so on. Yeah, provided that we manage the integrity issue very well, so that we can trust the outputs it is produced by the student based on their individual performance or group performance. Then I believe we can do offline. I think that what we did. Along the way with the projects, we evaluate the project report. We evaluate the F5 thesis based on their performance on the assessment.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Shahrir. So it's basically looking at their outputs of because you cannot interact with them face to face. I think that's the best way. You cannot do direct observations on their work. So what about your opinion, Dr. Rosdi, on that?
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Hanim. I think I agree, concur with Prof. Shahrir. A lot of means to measure. This is part of our learning curve. This is part of outcome that we need to deliver. So a lot of we can find ways how to measure this. I give you an example. Probably when we engage structured training, for example, internship, definitely we will engage another person or has at the company, or at the internship as a host. So this joint assessment can be done with them. It is not solely based on our academic staff, but we can also engage our partners, collaborators to provide some insight in terms of the performance of the students. On top of that, I think just now in terms of reports, in terms of the output of the program, we can also measure it. We can also make it tangible for us to somewhat evaluate the performance of the students. I think it can be done, Prof. Hanim.
Yeah. Okay. Very, very good. Yeah. So we can also use the host from the internship or attachment place from the company as well. Yeah. Okay. The next question, I think Dr. Rosdi has answered part of it. Do you want to comment again? The next question is on quite similar, but they want it to show that. Can you highlight the question?
Unfortunately, Prof. Hanim, I don't have the rubric offhand here. But again, I just want to mention just now in terms of our evaluation report, when we send it to our examiner, they have to provide this rating for each sections. As I mentioned just now, research findings, as example, they don't, kalau traditionally, conventionally, probably they have to somehow mention on the improvement or recommendation to be to the student to make the correction. But now they have to give rating 1 to 5 in terms of, based on report or based on the thesis. So what is the rating, the appropriate rating for the students? They will give this evaluation score or scores. So based on this, we translate it into PLO attainment through assessment outcome just now. This assessment outcome will compile all these scores, and this assessment outcome will map to PLO. Yeah,
okay. Thank you, Dr. Rosdi. I think there's another question that relates to research mode measurement. There's one related to the journal publication.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Can you?
Do you also measure learning outcome attainment from journal publication? Okay. Yeah. At UTP, we don't actually take it as learning outcome or assessment outcome, but we take it as graduation requirement. So graduation requirement, they have to fulfill this, how many, let's say, for example, for masters, they have to complete one journal, or they have to publish one journal article or journal publication. So it's Scopus Index. But if you look at my presentation just now, in terms of BAPC biannual postgraduate symposium, there are three components just now: the supervision, the evaluation from the supervisor, technical paper, and oral presentation. So this is where the learning curve comes in. So every student, they have to every semester, every student, they have to produce a technical report. This technical report basically is a learning curve. It is a training ground for them to produce good or high impact journal. We will evaluate this and we will give feedback to them in terms of their performance. So this is going to be part of the learning outcome for us at UTP. I'm not so sure where, elsewhere, but journal publication is not going to be part of the learning outcome. The learning outcome instead will be part of the graduation requirement.
Okay, maybe I can ask this because there are a lot of a few questions related to this. Maybe what about practice in UKM, Prof. Shahrir? Do you use journal to measure the learning outcome?
Actually, no, because we need to, in principle, the learning outcome is the measure of students' learning experience. We also did the same thing. We do the same thing. We treat the general publication as requirement for graduation.
Okay. What about in UTAR? Do you know, Dr. Chen?
Because in UTAR, we have, like what Dr. Rossi mentioned just now, we have for the research base, we have only a few courses. But because for the research one, we are more focused on their thesis and also their YWA. So
don't take the journal.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so thank you very much. We go to the next question. Which one should I show here? Dr. Chen, your name is there. So how do you show evidence that the OBE implementation is carried out in depth, not just superficial? Maybe they are talking about you want to convince the during accreditation, isn't it? When you show the so yeah, what's your comment on that?
Okay, of course, just now as I mentioned, at the designing, when we are designing the assessment questions or assessment tasks, actually we need to really map to the right course learning outcome to assess appropriately. Right, this is a very important base. Right, if this one doesn't do it right, whatever measurement that we have, whatever fancy system that you have, it doesn't reflect the performance of the actual performance of the students. Okay, so beside that, we also have this, beside at the cost base, particularly for the undergraduate program, we built out from year 1, year 2 until the last year, their final years, right? In our final year, our undergraduate program in UTAR, we also have the final year project. This is a very particular important course, right? It's actually most of the program have across 2 long trimester final year project, which actually assess the students most of their program learning outcome. This is the part that the student able to demonstrate what they have learned throughout for the past 2 years or for the past 3 years, to demonstrate from the soft skill to technical skill to the practical skill as well. Right. So this is the parts that we can actually have a very confident to the to say that our students actually consistent with what we have measured from course to course, and also this is the output as a final year project to measure holistically for the overall student performance.
Okay, very good. Maybe you need to actually check or cross-check with the students itself. Any parts of your system that you want to highlight that really show the depth of or maybe in your action plans or something? Do you have these action plans in your system?
Yeah, it's not the system based, but it's actually a process, the mechanism based. So as I just now I share in my PPT the PDCA models. We have the cost plannings, right? Then after that, we also go through the moderator process. So the roles of the moderators is crucial here to actually cross check whether the assessment use is appropriately to assess to the certain CRO, right? With that, and also in terms of the clarity, in terms of the transparency and validity of the assessment, right? Is it appropriate to this batch of students, right? To related to this course, right? So the moderation is set to help us to make sure our assessment is on track, right? With the right assessment and also with the appropriate course learning outcome that we have, then actually we can ensure that the output from the measurements is actually close to the accurate that what we have and also what the student can perform.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, I guess it's all about the CQR. When you can show the CQR, that can also be a very good evidence to show that OBE implementation has
yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay, so we go to the next question. This is for Prof. Shahrir on the, I think you have showed a little bit on how to measure the learning outcomes, but you want to comment on this, how to measure engineering ethics and product sustainability in assignment using rubrics. Prof. Shahrir.
Okay, I think this one is maybe the from engineering program. I think because it depends on how you write the learning outcomes, because when you write the learning outcomes, what the action verb you use, how it is, what kind of, how it is mapped to the Bloom taxonomy. I presume it is effective. So whether or not it is mapped to effective level 3 or 4, valuing or organizing. And then engineering ethics, belong to different dimension or different cluster, even in EAC or MQF, belong to cluster 5 MQF. Product sustainability in EAC currently they are mapped to one specific domain, even though in the new next coming IEA Washington Accord, it has been embedded, it has been disappeared, and not disappeared, but embedded inside problem analysis and engineering and society, but now renamed as engineering and the world. So depends on how you profile it. It is much easier if you profile it is in the effective level 3, because the instrument is just to see how the student can demonstrate how they value their awareness and their judgment on the ethics. But if you put at number 4, it's more difficult, because to evaluate ethics at number 4 more difficult. What more if you at number 5 is more internalization, is more difficult to observe this kind of performance. Product sustainability is is less. It is less difficult because normally we can observe. But again, it depends on how you write and how you construct the rubric out of it. Normally, when you write the outcome, that automatically be the attainment level for the rubric. And then you need to build up the rubric to define the higher level. Like in a value rubric, they start with benchmark. Benchmark normally we take a C. There is a attain, outcome attain. But then you need to define what is the grade of B, milestone 1 and 2, and capstone, the A rated grade. I think that's all my answer on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prof. Shahrir. We go to the last question. Okay, maybe I want input from each of you on this. Achievements of PO and PO are quite clear to academicians, but to students and parents, they tend to find it as a big picture from the HEP, how to educate the importance of these elements to them. So maybe from each of you as well. So at the same time, you can just wrap up from each of you. First, I call Prof. Shahrir.
Okay. Basically, the PO is a measure whether or not they can, they are employable. Because that's the attribute during their working life. So of course, it's quite blur to differentiate if you are not educationist between PO and PLO. Even though for stakeholder also quite blur, we need to explain them in the advisory meeting why different between that. But in general, it is like to differentiate between fresh graduate and alumni. Alumni at the early stage, 3 to 5 years of in the working life.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Shahrir. What about Dr. Rosdi?
Can you hear me?
Ada somebody on the mic? Boleh off mic? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. All right. I think OBE just started 10 years ago or more than 10 years ago. The awareness among those who are not basically involved in this OBE directly, it's very difficult to educate them. But based on this awareness, I think through our alumni, I think our engagement with industries, let's say for example through IAPs, just now we'll provide this insight and we'll provide this awareness to them. I believe now even the schooling system, our new schooling system is already embarked on this OBE as well. Gradually, I think the understanding will be up among parents and among those who are not basically directly involved with this outcome-based education. It will take time. We will take that time definitely, even within our academic staff to know this, to understand this OBE. I think Prof. Shahrir can share his experience through EAC, so-called as EAC assessor. It will take time. I think more than 5 years, to get the grasp of the understanding on OBE among academic staff. So more about the parents and those we're not directly involved with this. It will take time. Hopefully, inshallah, in the future we will get this understanding throughout outside the academic circle system. Okay.
Maybe Prof. Hanim, I can give you some glimpse. PLO achievement is can be indicator for our employability, the graduate employability. But PO can indicate the stakeholders or employer satisfaction.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. What about your take on this, Dr. Chen?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Of course, I think like what Dr. Rosdi and Prof. Shahrir said is really not easy for non-educator to really understand the whole pictures of the OBE. But of course, we need to start somewhere. Right? We need to start somewhere. like what I mentioned just now, our program learning outcome achievements, individual students, actually we did have in our, we already embedded inside our academic advisory sections. So our academic advisor actually will discuss with details with the students what actually what are the PRO about, and what are their current status of their PRO achievements, and how actually they go about it to improve this or actually to enhance this, right? So that they can have a better pictures, or at the end of my 3 years in UTAR or 4 years in UTAR, these the attributes that I was supposed to achieve and also obtain, right? Then they have the better understanding about this so-called outcome-based educations. They already know their destinations, then they will know that how actually the ways that they go ahead on these directions. They will try to grab every single opportunity that provided to them, whether it's in the formal curriculum or actually it's a COQ or any activity, extra activity that we provide, right? So that we create that environment for them to achieve that 8 PRO, which actually to get aligned with the MQF LOD. I think that's really important.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Chen. I think if I can conclude, basically we just need to keep on engaging and sharing the attainment results with the stakeholders, relevant stakeholders, and also keep on sharing the information with the relevant stakeholders. So I guess thank you very much to all the panels, Prof. Shahrir, Dr. Rosdiazli, and also Dr. Chen. Before I pass to the MC, let me just share with you to conclude this session. Thank you so much to all the participants. Maybe a saying from Alvin Toffler, yeah? The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, okay, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So I hope this webinar is part of our process of learn, unlearn, and relearn process. And with that, thank you so much for your attention and staying with us until 4:16. So I pass this session to the MC. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you, Prof. Hanim,
Okay, thank you.
and thank you, Prof. Hanim, and all the speakers, Professor Shahrir, Dr. Rosdi, and Dr. Chen. Okay. Thank you to all the participants as well for joining, and also I hope you have enjoyed the session. For your information, the video recording of today's webinar will be uploaded to MyQAN YouTube. Please visit MyQAN YouTube for your viewing pleasure. As for the PowerPoint slides, as mentioned by Prof. Hanim just now, we will check with the speakers again. Then if we can forward to you, we will send to all the registered participants. Only the registered participants are by email. Okay. Okay. Before we end today's webinar, I would like to invite all of you to have another photo session. We understand that maybe some of you did not manage to switch on webcam during the opening just now. Please switch on your webcam for photo taking so that we can put in record today's webinar. Dr. Hayati.
Okay, no problem. Okay, everyone open your web camera. Okay, get ready. I will say 1, 2, 3 and smile, okay? All right, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, another, oh no webcam. So should we need one more attempt? Okay, yes. One more. All right, okay, one more. Ready? All right. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hayati and the team. I hope all of you had a fruitful session and gain useful knowledge that you can apply in your work. See you again soon in our next group practice sharing webinar series, which will see the sharing of good QA practices by panelists from MyQAN member institutions. Thank you and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.